Happy 5th year commemoration of the great victory of the Philippines against China before the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Is it worthy of celebration? Natural po, kasi panalo pa rin po ang Pilipinas. Ano pong napanalunan natin? Well, una-una po, sabi ng tribunal, walang basihan ang historic claims to water. Ibig sabihin, yung pag-angkin po ng buong West Philippine Sea, dahil ito daw po ay kabahagi ng historic waters or ng Nine Dash Lines, ay walang basihan. Ibig sabihin, kung ang iyong karagatan ay hindi territorial sea, hindi contiguous zone, hindi EEZ, wala pong legal na basihan ang iyong pag-angkin sa ganyang karagatan. So that is a very important win because it invalidates the current basis for China's claim to the entirety of the West Philippine Sea. Question: despite the fact that it is worthy of celebration, has it settled the ongoing territorial disputes? Unfortunately, not po. Ang decision po ng Arbitral Tribunal is limited to maritime territories. But as you know, under the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas, you reckon maritime territories from land territories. At dahil ang pinag-aawayan din po, ang pinag-aagawan po, ay mga isla dyan po sa karagatan ng West Philippine Sea, wala pong impact yung desisyon ng Arbitral Tribunal doon sa mga disputed islands ng West Philippine Sea. Kasama na po dyan ang ating Kalayaan Group of Islands. Bakit po walang impact? Kasi po sa international law, because maritime territories are generated by land territories, magkaiba po yung legal basis for establishing claims to land territory and yung mga rules for claiming maritime territories. When you talk of land territories, the basis of title or arbitral tribunals and judicial organs will decide on conflicting claims to land territory on the basis of which state presents the superior claim to what is known as effective occupation. Effective occupation po are simply evidence that a state is exercising both sovereignty and jurisdiction in a contested territory. Take note po that the decision of the court is always relative. The claimant state that presents the superior claim. So it's not impossible that all claimants will have the same kind of evidence. They are incorporated in maps, incorporated in local administrative units, presence of military bases, the granting of franchises. So everything is relative, but surely they will have to be a claimant state with the superior claim. And bulk of the jurisprudence so far states that perhaps the most superior evidence of effective occupation is the exercise of judicial jurisdiction. Kaya nga po dyan sa Scarborough Shoal na yan, napakalakas po ng titulo natin dyan because as early as the 1900s, meron na pong desisyon ng ating Korte Suprema sa isang kaso involving a maritime collision in Scarborough Shoal. So if we were to apply jurisprudence po, this exercise of judicial jurisdiction is the highest form of evidence of effective occupation as far as Scarborough is concerned. Now, ano naman po yung rules applicable as far as maritime territories are concerned? Well, dahil you cannot have territories outside of land territories, you would have to establish first saan yung base point mo or baseline from which you reckon your maritime territory. Pero when it comes to an ongoing maritime dispute, the court applies what is known as equitable considerations leading to an equitable solution. So what is that? Is that a decision based on equity? No. It simply means that the court or tribunal will apply every equitable consideration that will result in an equitable solution. But normally, you begin by establishing the midpoint and adjusting the midpoint depending on relevant factors such as the length of the coastlines and the presence of islands, which could have full or half effects. So, as we celebrate this win, it is a celebration because the tribunal clarified that there is absolutely no legal basis to the 9 dash lines. But it is not a reason to celebrate in the sense that the disputes are ongoing. And as the President said to President Xi, perhaps the dispute will not be resolved during our lifetime. But what must we do now in order to capitalize from this win? Well, remember, the issue still is which of the claimant states to the different islands can establish a superior claim on the basis of exercise of sovereignty and jurisdiction. You see, one of the things that the tribunal ruled upon also in that same arbitration is that the manner by which we incorporated the Kalayaan Group of Islands under a Marcos PD 1569 is also contrary to the rules of UNCLOS. So ibig sabihin po, parang sabi ng Korte Suprema, kinakailangan ng Pilipinas na bumuo ng bagong batas dahil yung batas po natin na nagkumakabit sa Spratlys Group of Islands, Kalayaan Group of Islands sa ating teritoryo ay hindi rin po sang-ayon sa UNCLOS. So I think the challenge now is to comply with that portion of the arbitral award. We cannot cherry pick in invoking portions of the decisions which are in our favor and ignore portions of the same arbitral ruling which is not consistent with our national policies. We have a treaty obligation pursuant to Pacta Sunt Servanda to amend our domestic laws to be in compliance with the UN Convention on the Law of the Seas. What does this mean? This means, number one, passing a law including all of the islands, islets, and rocks covered by our claim under 1569 as part of Philippine territories, not as part of an archipelago, but enclaving each of these islands now as part of our Philippine territories and generating a territorial sea of 12 nautical miles. Unless we do this po, we will be in default with what jurisprudence has said, that part of proving sovereignty is the fact that you identify under your domestic law what you feel, what a state submits is part of their national territory. Bakit ba ho i-abandon na natin yung claim to the whole area as being part of the archipelago? Because the tribunal said so. You cannot append it to your territory as another archipelago. What we can claim only are the individual islands and the 12 nautical miles that they generate by way of territorial sea. Bakit walang EEZ? Kasi sabi na po ng tribunal, and this is binding also on the Philippines, that none of the islands can support human habitation and therefore cannot generate exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles. So ang suma total po dyan, we need a law identifying all the features, islands, rocks, islets, cays, as part of Philippine territory, but enclaving them with territorial seas, or at least naming them as part of the Philippine national territory if they are not high tide elevations, because unless we do so, we will be in default of what could be a very strong evidence of the exercise of effective occupation, which is legislation to define our territory. So, to summarize, yes, we must celebrate insofar as the arbitral decision clarified that China cannot make a claim on the West Philippine Sea on the basis of historical title to maritime territory, but the matter of the ongoing territorial dispute subsists. Now, should we allow this decision to be the be-all and end-all of Philippine-Chinese relations? Alam niyo po, napakaliit na bagay kung itong decision nito at enforcement of the decision will determine the entire relations between two neighboring countries in Asia. Sabi nga po nating mga Pilipino, makapag-away ka na sa kamag-anak, pero huwag ka makipag-away sa iyong kapitbahay. Surely, the arbitral decision is not the be-all and end-all of our relations with China. And this is the policy of the president. Since we cannot resolve this land territorial dispute during our lifetimes, we can set it aside without sacrificing or giving away even an inch of our territory and pursuing matters that we could pursue, such as in the field of investment and trade. Now, I'm sure the other speakers will brief us on the fruits of this renewed friendship between the Philippines and China arising from the independent foreign policy of the President. Needless to say, hindi naman po pwede na yung ating mga karatig bansa na malapit din sa China, gaya ng Malaysia at ng Vietnam, ay hundreds of billions ang investments na nakukuha sa China. Yung ating mga karatig bansa gaya ng Thailand at Malaysia, halos milyones na ang turista na galing sa China. Samantalang tayo, dati-rate, bago dumating si Presidente Duterte, halos wala namang mga turistang galing sa mainland China at kakaunti po talaga in comparison with their neighbors ang ating investments na nakukuha. Surely, the President's policy, as the other speakers can attest to, has actually resulted in tremendous, dramatic rise in Chinese investments in the Philippines, as well as, of course, tremendous rise in trade between these two neighboring countries. Of course, I'm sad that the arrivals of our foreign tourists from China was disrupted by the pandemic, but if I'm not mistaken, Chinese visitors became at one point the most number of foreign tourists visiting the Philippines. Hindi ba ho tama ang naging polisiya ng presidente? More trade, more investments means more food in the table of every Filipino family. Bakit naman natin hahayaan yung hidwaan sa pinag-aagawang teritoryo na wala naman talagang mga tao, no, na makaapekto doon sa karapatan ng ating mga kababayan na magkaroon ng hanap buhay at ng pagkain sa kanilang araw-araw na buhay? Tama ba ho na isasakripisyo natin ang mga buhay ng ating mga sundalo na karamihan ay mahihirap sa isang hidwaan na alam naman natin hindi natin mapapanalunan? And why would we even consider the military option, one which we cannot win, given that we have enshrined in our own constitution that we renounce war as an instrument of our foreign policy? Maingay nga lang po ang politika. Ganyan po talaga ang politika. Maraming ginagawa or nais gawing political issue para sa eleksyon itong foreign policy ni Presidente Duterte. But let us not forget that not too long ago, a different administration pursued a different policy, one of open confrontation, one which resulted in our fishermen losing their right to pursue their livelihood in Scarborough Shoal, one that resulted in the chilling of ties between two Asian neighbors. Ako po, I have taken a stand. I do not want that for our people. I want trade, I want investments, because I want jobs, and I want food in the table of every Filipino family. So lilinawin ko lang po, we have not surrendered even an inch of our territory, but we will not allow this ongoing territorial dispute to be the be-all and end-all of our relations with China. I would be happy to answer some of your questions later on, but for now, thank you for joining us, and good afternoon to all of you.